Hello and welcome to UWO Now. I'm Wendell Ray. UWO Now is the place where we discuss relevant and interesting topics with the students, staff, and faculty at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. Thanks for joining us on today's episode. This year I have a high school reunion to attend. My high school, I should note, closed several years ago. But classes still come together to have reunions, and I think I've counted maybe 4 or 5 reunion groups from my high school that I found on Facebook that represent classes that are having these milestone reunions either this year, as my class is, or had one last year, or planning one for next year. There's even an annual homecoming parade that they still do for my high school, even though the high school shut down 5 years ago. So, and that means that, so marching bands and cheerleaders and chess club presidents, everybody can participate. Any former student can participate, and it is fairly popular. And the college I attended has the largest alumni base in the nation, the second largest, I should say, behind Penn State, which kind of brings me to what we want to talk about today, and that is alumni. How connected are you to your schools and the schools that you graduated from? How important are alumni to the school or university? We're going to talk today about that with our guest, Chris Gantner, who's Director of Alumni Relations here at UWO. Thanks so much for joining us today, Christine. It's good to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm pleased to be here.
Tell us about what your job is at UW-Oshkosh. You are the Director of Alumni Relations. What does that mean?
Yes. It's my pleasure to serve as Director of Alumni Relations, and that means that I get to work with many of our amazing UW-Oshkosh alumni. We have more than 100,000 UWO alums who've graduated from UW-Oshkosh in our 151-year history now. Wow. And yeah, it's pretty incredible. And I have the privilege to work with so many of those alums. And it's really our job in alumni relations to help our alums remain connected with their alma mater. The broadest way we try to keep alumni engaged is through our alumni communications, really trying to reach everyone with the help of our incredible university marketing and communications department. We work side by side with them, specifically marketing to or working with the alumni audience. We try to keep our alums informed of all the wonderful things going on at their alma mater, what our students are doing, new majors and minors and disciplines. We want them to be engaged with their university, proud of what it's become, and also really look back on the university's history that they're part of. And, so taking a look back and a look forward and really keeping them connected through our communications. We have a magazine that we do twice a year that's put out in both hard copy and electronically. We have a monthly electronic newsletter called Alumni News. It comes out the first Friday of every month. It is full of stories about our successful alumni, our successful faculty and staff, and our successful students and all the great initiatives that are going on here at UW-Oshkosh, all the things that we're all proud of. And it's really important, I would add, that our alums keep us informed about what they're doing and where they're at, to share their successes with us, because as part of that newsletter, we have something called class notes, and that's where alums can share with us the amazing things that they are doing, where they're living, where they're working, if they've written a book, won an award, have a family, whatever they want to share, whatever successes they've had in their lives. It's fun to share that. But it's really important that they remain connected to the alumni office and especially have an email on file with us, because we do so much of our communication via email. And if they don't have an email on file with us, they could be missing out on some great opportunities.
So what is a year like for you? So, I mean, we're in September, for instance, when the school year starts. What does your office do during that month? Or what does the entire calendar year look like for the Office of Alumni Relations?
Well, that's a great segue into the fact that we do another way we engage our alums is through events. We do a lot of events to keep our alums engaged with one another and with the university. We do some signature university events. For example, each year in May, we invite the 50-year class back. So we have a 50th year reunion. We're already working with the class of 1973 on their 50th reunion, which will be next May. We have that reunion weekend in conjunction with commencement, so that, and the weekend culminates with these alums, these 50-year alums, are golden titans, putting on gold caps and gowns and leading in the processional of 2023 graduates. And that's a really wonderful thing to have our 50-year grads celebrate with our newest alumni. It's really something quite special. That's one of our signature events.
And that's I think that's another good segue into what, I mean, we have these alumni events. We have alumni at all schools. But what is the importance of a strong alumni and their relationship with the university? How does that help current students, the school in general, just having that continued connection with the school?
Well, it's really important and a great benefit to our current students to look up to our successful alums who are working in their fields and industries that they want to develop a career in. So it's really important for us to make connections across campus. Our faculty and staff are so important in keeping connected with their former students, alums, to bring them back into the classroom, share their experiences and expertise, help mentor current students. All those things are really important. So, and our alums are so willing to do that. They want to give back to their alma mater in that way, to come in and provide help and guidance to our current students. And they often say to me, I wish I would have had more of that opportunity. Or they tell me, gee, when I was an undergrad, when those alums came in and spoke to us that are really out in the field doing the work in whatever area, that was really impactful and meaningful. So it's just really important for our alums to have the opportunity to interact with our students. Our alums love that, and our students benefit so greatly from hearing the experiences of our alums. One of the things we do is we work with the Quest 2 classes, and we bring in an alumni speaker to each of those classes. And really those alums help our young students, our early students, realize how much learning actually happens outside of the classroom as well. And that is being involved in student life on the campus, joining clubs and organizations, whether they're social or whether they're connected to the student's major, having maybe a job on campus or being part of residence life or all the programming that Reunion does. So many alums say, I learned so much about working collaboratively with others, problem solving and such, by being part of student organizations and student life outside of the classroom. So a lot of alums come back and share that perspective too.
Yeah, that connection that they have. I know I can kind of testify to the fact that alumni are willing to return. I taught a class this semester, or last semester, And I reached out to some alums to be guest speakers in class, and they were more than willing to participate. I know in the radio, TV, film department, there is a strong alumni connection to current students, and I think it's because they have that connection to the facilities that they worked at, whether it's Titan TV or here at WRST or the Film Society, where they were able to have some meaningful experiences, as you were talking about, that now they recognize as they're now adults and working professionals, how important that was, and appreciate that connection and want to give back. And so you got to kind of take advantage of those situations and capitalize on those in your office, I would imagine.
Yes, absolutely.
So what are some things that are going on this year that you think are really important, and some nice things that we're doing on campus that alumni are going to be really fired up for?
Well, I'll tell you, we're really, coming in the home stretch of summer here and really looking towards the fall and welcoming our students back. And one of the most exciting things that I can think of, like historical, is the debut of our Titan Thunder marching band. That's going to really escalate Titan pride and spirit. And what a great opportunity for those students that are part of that new marching band, but just for all Titans, that the elevated pride that will bring. That's going to be really exciting. And homecoming weekend in the fall, it's also, we celebrate homecoming weekend and family day or family weekend together. And this year it's October 21st and 22nd. And that is a phenomenal weekend. That's a weekend alums need to mark on their calendar and come back. We have so many fun activities planned for alums and families. So that weekend starts for us in Alumni Relations with our annual Alumni Award celebration on Friday, October 21st. This year we're honoring 10 alumni, incredible alumni, with our awards. We have Distinguished Alumni Awards, Outstanding Young Alumni Awards, and last year we added a new Service Award component. So we're really excited to bring 10 incredible alums back to campus to honor them that weekend on Friday evening. And then on Saturday, October 22nd, in Reeve Union, we have something called the Titan Tailgate. And again, that is for all alumni and friends of the university, the campus community, our broader Oshkosh community. And we partner, it's also family weekend. And now we have so many legacy families. There's a lot of alums who have children going to school here now, and it just makes for a great celebration. Today we're talking with Chris Gantner, who is the UW-Oshkosh Director of Alumni Relations. And I wanted to ask you, I'm an alumni or an alum of a school, or let's say I'm an alum of UW-Oshkosh, and I come back on campus. Should I check in, or should I just kind of, nostalgically walk around, or what would you prefer? Is there a place for me to come by and say, hey, I graduated in X year, and I think, I just was hanging out. Would you want me to come back to a particular office to check in, or is there a process? Absolutely. Well, we certainly invite you to stop in at the UW-Oshkosh Alumni Relations office. We are located at the corner of Wisconsin and Pearl in the beautiful Culver Family Welcome Center, at the top of the stairs or right off the elevator on the second floor. We're there Monday through Friday or by appointment. If you know in advance you're coming to campus, it's always kind of nice to be able to know that in advance, and maybe I could provide a tour or provide some extra things if I know in advance that you're coming to campus. But by all means, just drop in at any time. How does that help you in your office when people do stop by? Well, we like our alums to leave with some goodies to show their Titan pride. So we always have materials in our office that giveaways and things that they can take back to their home or office and show their Titan pride. Our bookstore, University Books and More, has been a great partner and sponsor with us. They offer alumni discounts, so you want to come back to campus and get that sweatshirt or T-shirt or some swag. We can help you with that. We can, if you let us know in advance too, we can often help you make connections across campus. If you're looking for a fellow classmate or want to get in touch with a faculty or staff member, use us as your starting point. We'd love to welcome our alums back to campus and help them in whatever they're trying to pursue. And, for some, it may be they live locally, they haven't been here in a while, or if they're welcome to visit anytime. Or for some, I have an alum that's visiting tomorrow from the state of Maryland, and he has not been back to campus in 50 years. So he let me know in advance, and I was able to make some connections for him, and I'm going to give him a little tour around campus. And so when we know in advance, we can try to make it extra special, but alums are welcome to stop in at any time.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about what you mentioned earlier, and that is the new or the rebirth of the marching band, and how important that is for developing the culture and connection to a school, having that marching band, having a fight song and all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a coming segment of this show. But wanted to say thank you for coming by today and telling everybody about the Alumni Relations Office and what you do and how important it is to what it means to be a Titan and what it means to be connected to a school and keeping those connections once you leave the school. We don't want you to go off and have this great life and forget about us here in Oshkosh, but to come back and see us and check in with your office because it's really important. But thanks, Chris, for coming by and talking to us. Really good to have you. Good seeing you today.
Thank you so much.
All right. And welcome back to UWO Now. I'm Wendell Ray. During the first portion of today's show, we talked with Chris Gantner, who is in Alumni Relations at UWO, and she talked about a lot of exciting things that are going on this year at UWO. And one of the things she mentioned was the debut of Titan Thunder, which is the marching band at UWO. I'm going to talk today about that and a little broadly, broaden the discussion, I should say, about school spirit and how you do maintain that and the importance of having a marching band, a pep band to instill that school spirit at games and at events. And here to talk to us a little bit more about what's going on at UWO is Joe Scheivert, who is the director of athletic bands here at UWO. Joe, thanks so much for coming by and talking to us today.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to any opportunity to spread the news about what we're putting together here this year.
Let's talk about who you are. Let's talk about Joe the Kid. When did you first start to be interested in music?
Well, my parents actually met when they were in their high school band, and so they were active musicians throughout both their high school years. My dad had played sort of in a rhythm and blues group for many years as I was growing up, so it was always something that was around in my household. Started picking up instruments around when I was getting into elementary school, and when it was time to join the band, then I started playing saxophone, actually, and that was my first thing. I would say within 2 years of starting saxophone, I went to my band director and said, all right, now I know how to play the saxophone. What else do you want me to do? And it just kept taking off from there.
Really? Okay. So so it wasn't that you were fascinated with the saxophone. You enjoyed music in general.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what instrument did you tackle next?
Well, he said, because I expected him to say, oh, like clarinet, something sort of like saxophone. He said, actually, we need some tuba players. And I said, all right, let's roll. So really through high school, I played saxophone in some things and tuba in other things. That when I got to Penn State to do my undergrad, I actually started as a chemistry major thinking I might be a chem teacher. But within even part of one semester, I realized that I'd be studying chemistry to be a chemist, but really what I really enjoyed and what I really wanted to spend more time was what I'd been doing very actively in high school in music. And so I stayed involved with that. I played in the marching band there at Penn State, playing sousaphone, and that sort of took me into the area where I am now.
And that's a great pivot point, I think, in your life.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people, I mean, my wife and I talk about this sometimes, that when you have a child who's gifted artistically, sometimes that's seen as kind of a secondary thing or not something they want to try and pursue for their whole life. And even you decided, at some point you wanted to pursue chemistry until you recognized, that's not really what I love.
That's right. And we certainly try to make sure that folks know that there are opportunities at the college level to stay active in music. It's not something that needs to end when they graduate from high school. A lot of folks, parents and students, are sort of under the misconception that, when they get to college, the only thing they can be thinking about is those topics applicable to their major. So if a student is coming in as a chemistry major, maybe they're not looking for these musical opportunities, when really that gives their mind a chance to focus on some other things. We all know that the amount of time that the students have available lets them participate in different activities, whether it's sports or club sports, music activities or Greek life or anything like that. And so they'll find ways to fill that time. We want to try to reach them early on and let our incoming students here know that you can pursue these music opportunities as a way to supplement your education, and we're finding ways to make sure that it's applicable in their curriculum so it can count for USP credits and things, so they can actually look at it and say, yeah, this was worth it for both my own mental state and enjoyment, as well as it applied to my course of study.
So you're at Penn State?
That's true. Yeah.
And you made that decision about what you wanted to do. Take us there to how you got to UWO.
Sure. Well, after undergrad, I taught middle school choral and general music for a couple years, and then was really interested in the idea of doing grad work as a graduate assistant along with the marching band at Penn State. And I'd maintained a good connection with the director there, and he said, this is going to be something that's open if next year, if it's something you're interested in, and I definitely was. And it didn't take long for me to do that during my master's degree to say, I think more than wanting to be a high school band director, which is what I came into my music ed major thinking, I really enjoyed the complexity and logistics side of doing the college bands. It wasn't just, I just wanted to teach music. I wanted to be involved at that level.
Okay.
And so that was always sort of in my mind from that point, and that was now, 17 years ago or something like that. And so I word it this way, just sort of, because people don't see this coming, but so you think, all right, so I wanted to do marching bands and I got my master's degree, and so what's the next step? Naturally, my wife and I moved to Thailand to teach music overseas.
That's the place everybody goes to do marching band.
Yeah, it's a hidden gem. Now, actually, we had been really interested in international teaching. Her family lived overseas for a little while, and we thought, we're both teachers. I needed some teaching experience beyond just the couple years of middle school chorus and general music that I've been doing. And so instead of getting a job somewhere in Pennsylvania where I was originally from, we said, well, let's teach at some of these other schools. So we taught in Thailand for 3 years, and I was teaching concert bands, jazz band, music theory, music technology, the things I'd be doing in a regular high school job here, but I was doing it in Thailand for 3 years. And then at another school outside of Osaka, Japan for another 3 years. At that point, I started to see that I wanted to pivot back into what I'm doing in athletic bands. So I started looking into doctoral programs that would get me involved in that. And that's when we moved to Iowa so I could study at the University of Iowa and work really closely with the athletic band program there. That sort of launched me into a couple temporary interim jobs and then fed into what I'm doing here at UWO.
You're listening to UWO Now. I'm Wendell Ray, and today's guest is Joe Scheivert, who is the director of athletic bands at UWO. And we're talking about, his path to UWO, how he got here. But not only that, we're going to be talking today about how he has built the new Titan Thunder marching band and some of the other athletic bands here at UWO. So let's talk about the importance of bands and how they contribute to the atmosphere, the spirit, and the excitement at athletic contests specifically, and what that means to a university.
Sure. Well, I think that marching bands are a specific component of the collegiate athletic experience, especially when you're looking at football and basketball specifically, which are, publicly, most folks are going to attend those two sports if they're coming to some sort of contest here. And so what the chancellor realized, and I'm thankful that he did when he got here, was, we have great athletic programs here, but something is missing from this experience. And so he's set to work, I guess maybe 8 years now, at trying to figure out how to add that component in. When you take in any sort of college football game on a Saturday on TV, you're likely to see scenes of, the student section, certainly the cheerleaders and the mascots, but you're also very likely to see scenes of the band and to hear them, that audio piped through as part of that. Anybody who's capturing audio for TV will absolutely have microphones in front of the band so they can incorporate that as part of it. It's something that's not as common in the pros, but really ties to the long history of collegiate athletics and sort of the way that bands have evolved alongside of athletics. And so for us, starting a program here was really just about, filling that gap and something that was lacking from a lot of other college experiences. And especially noting that this isn't the first marching band that UWO has had. There have been bands starting actually as early as 1922 here. Okay. So this is our first year and our 100th year. But it's been since 1980 since there's actually been an active university athletic band program here. And so in those 42 years, while a lot has been lost in terms of that atmosphere, I'm frequently contacted by alumni of the 60s and 70s who say, I was a part of this band back then. We're so excited to see that there's something here then. And that's really when we talk about the meaning of having these bands as part of this experience. It's something that connects to hundreds or thousands of students over the decades, where they identify this as a key part of their experience, as well as a key part of a key spirit organization on campus.
Well, music in general is something that people can identify with. You've been all over the world teaching music, and I know that if those of you out there listening, or if you're watching, I'm sure that if you hear a song, it takes you back somewhere immediately. I mean, if it's an older song, you remember something that you were doing. So when I think about my college experience, not only do I think about my friends and so forth, I think about the athletics and the games that I went to, and I think about the fight song, and I think about the music and the whole atmosphere that was there. So there's some sort of connection that alumni will have when they can remember the band that played during halftime, or the band that played at intermission, or during a timeout at a basketball game.
Sure.
So important connections there to build those emotional ties to a school as well, I believe.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that I've thought about a lot as we've been developing this band, to try to incorporate some elements of what the previous band had done, both in sort of uniform design. There's a little bit of visual element to that as well. Incorporating the traditional fight song that the bands would have been playing back a couple decades behind where we are now, and recordings of that had been in use in the stadium before we were there to provide it live. And so I think it's really exciting for those folks to see back in person this manifestation of their memories. And certainly we're hoping that our students are developing that sort of connection now and will remain connected to this program for years in the future.
Now, I think, stopped at Iowa. How did we get from Iowa to UWO?
Well, this is another set of really unique circumstances, I think, that that just happened upon me, that I would almost say that I was called to be here to do this job. While I was at Iowa, I attended a college athletic band director conference, and went to one session, quite a while ago now.
Okay.
But it was building a marching band from scratch, lessons we've learned. And so I have the notes from that down in my office, and there were two co-presenters there from two bands that started their first year of marching bands at their schools in 2015. One of those was at UNC Charlotte, and the other one was the director at Kennesaw State. After I graduated with my doctorate, the position opened at UNC Charlotte, and so I was the director there in an interim basis.
Wow.
And I'll give you a guess where I ended up immediately after that interim year was over.
Kennesaw State.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
And so while I am here in year one of this program, the two college bands that I've worked at when I've actually been employed in higher ed have been programs that have only started in the past few years. I wasn't there for year one, but I have connections at both those schools with the folks who actually started it, students who were there in year one, staff who were there as part of organizing this. Order forms for uniforms and instruments and all the things that they used to get this band started were at my disposal when I came here, because I just happened to end up in the jobs where those bands were both young programs, and so those resources were immediately available when I took this position.
So you have this now cache of information on how to start a band, and then you get the call from the chancellor, or how does that work? How did you get here?
Well, I happened to be in the two positions there at UNC Charlotte and Kennesaw State were both temporary interim positions, filling in for folks who left at the last minute. And the first one at UNC Charlotte, I was in there. I was the lead person in charge of that athletic band program. But when it came time for them to make the permanent hire, it was made clear to me that they were looking for someone who had more than a half a year of experience leading college bands.
All right.
And so I felt like I'd done great things there. We started a couple initiatives there with the band during that year, but they weren't looking for someone who was fresh out of a degree program to run that program in perpetuity. And so I had the opportunity to go elsewhere. My position at Kennesaw State, I had the option to remain there as an assistant director of athletic bands, but this was certainly an opportunity to be the head person in charge of this, and it was certainly something that held my interest, that I could see at that point that there were some things in my life that sort of pointed me to this for the experiences I've had. I mentioned how my previous positions led to me being here, and had this school been anywhere else in the country, that would have been the extent of my connections to the university or to the position. Three other folks live in the immediate area here who I'd had previous connection with in growing up. One was, and again, I grew up in a small town in South Central Pennsylvania, and so this was just a city that people only knew of because of the clothes.
Right.
And so, but it just so happened that at the church where I was growing up, where I was very active in choirs and bell choir and playing in the brass group and those kinds of things, the person who was leading all those music ensembles for a number of years, Dave Burnt, is an Oshkosh native and someone who is back living in town now and conducting one of the community bands here, and had been doing some church music in this area. They moved back after their kids grew up. My tuba professor at Penn State, Marty Erickson, used to commute from the state of Michigan to Pennsylvania to teach our lessons for 3 days a week and then go back and teach. I think he was at maybe Eastern Michigan at the time, and so jobs at both those universities. And he was married to Allison Shaw, and she was teaching at Michigan State, I believe. Allison Shaw was the department chair who helped hire me here, and her next position from there was here. And so while we'd never met, Marty Erickson showed up like in the background while we were holding Zoom interviews and things. And so there was that connection. And then the third one is, while I was at the University of Iowa, with the marching band there, the feature twirler, a full scholarship position, Whitney Sekar Anderson, was holding that position. She is an Oshkosh, like she went to high school here as well before taking that college job position in Iowa. And she is now the director of Julie's Touch of Silver, which is a major dance and twirling studio here in town. And so I knew that she was back in this area. So it wasn't just that I knew things about how to start bands for my previous jobs. I knew 3 people directly involved that could be resources for me coming here. And if this had been in Tulsa or Denver or anywhere else in the country, it would have just been my own studies. But now I also had some of these personal connections as well. So I've always just sort of felt that things were meant to fall into place here in ways beyond maybe anybody could have predicted.
I see that's clear. So you're here now at UWO, and you've got the template or you've got the resources to start all these different bands. Let's talk about the process. What bands are you trying to start? And for me and most of the people who are listening, we don't know all the minor steps, the detailed steps that have to take place in order for you to go from basically zero to where we are today. So tell us about what you had to do once you got here and what you've accomplished since you've started.
One of the first questions that I had in my interviews that I was very candid about was asking about the financial resources that the university was looking to put in. And they were very clear that this is something that is a high priority for the chancellor and a high priority for the university, and that they'd be willing to support this from day one at a level where they felt like it would be, at the level of a premier program, given that it's only 1 year old.
Okay.
And so one of the first things I was tasked with doing was setting a predicted budget for how we're going to actually need to spend the funds that had been reserved over the course of years for this project. And so that helped me sort of game plan out, all right, we're going to need to work on the uniform piece. We're going to need to work on the instrument piece. There's a lot of facilities questions that need to be answered. It also helped me figure out some of these items that we're going to need, I'm not really going to need till the months right before. And so it sort of helped me set up this timeline. But aside from figuring out all the purchasing sides, I felt like the place for me to start was with our marketing folks at the university, who've been a great resource to me in determining some of the imaging for the band, we spent a lot of time last summer working on logos and sort of word marks for us, because the thing that we knew was that we wanted to recruit people into this band, and we wouldn't have pictures of a band to recruit into. I couldn't say, here, check us out on YouTube. Come see us at a game so you can join this. Here's a picture of our students doing what they're doing. There were no students. So if you'd been following along with this a year ago, you might see pictures of Clash, the mascot,
right,
holding various instruments and poses and things that we put together this photo shoot last summer so that there was something other than just words on a page. And so it was really about trying to develop this identity, this visual identity that we could sell, honestly, to students and say, we do have something real here. This isn't just, we think we might put a band together, so come out and see what we're going to do. It was, we're definitely doing this. We're putting a lot of resources into this up front to make people know that this isn't just an experiment. Like, we're going in, full steam in year one. And so in addition to my going out to schools and visiting with directors and trying to do some one-on-one recruiting, we did a lot of push with web-based materials, social media. We certainly got some things out in other news outlets around and tried to do as much as we could to advertise that this was even a thing. If students were going to consider coming to this school to be in this band, they had to know that there was a band even in existence. And certainly most directors around weren't thinking, well, I'm going to recommend to my students that are graduating. The high school directors weren't thinking, well, I'm going to send them to UWO because they have this program. They had to even know that the program existed. So that was a huge component in our initial pre-purchasing phases of this. And then we had to supplement that with, well, if we're going to do that, we do have to go through the massive processes to develop what our uniforms are going to look like and get in real detail what that's going to be, develop the actual list of what the models are of the instruments, and go through the many months of process to get them here. There are some things we're honestly using rental instruments right now from our local retailer, because even having ordered some of these last calendar year, the supply chain issues as a result of the pandemic have pushed a lot of this back. But we've been very fortunate, and we've had a lot of help to make that all happen.
Well, that's outstanding. So, okay, so you're here. You've got a timeline in place. You know what you need, how much you're going to spend on certain things. Now you got to get some students. So how did that go? How did you get the band built, so to speak?
Well, the first time that I met a lot of students was at the Taste of Oshkosh Fair last August, which I guess this year was renamed Titan Fest.
Yes.
And so there were a lot of students who came by the booth and saw this was here. And I remember a handful of them that specifically said, I can't believe this is actually happening. You know, we've been hearing this might be in the works for a while, or they knew sort of through my interview process that there was somebody who was going to be on campus. And so I got quite a few leads out of that. I would say at least 50 to 60 some students that were just curious about what was going on.
Who were already here.
Right.
Wow.
And so that helped me be confident that when we started doing basketball pep band before marching band, that there would be students who would be there to fill that. And so we sort of, we had the idea initially to do this marching band, and we were aiming all of our preparations towards this fall rollout. But it became clear a little bit into that we could get a head start on a lot of these things by getting basketball band started. So we came up with the Bolt Band name for that and recruited students into that, and had a really successful season being a part of the basketball environment. And, there were some students that joined Bolt Band knowing that they were going to graduate last spring because they wanted to be a part of something. And now they're, our first athletic band's alumni in a while. Students who used that sort of as a jumping off point to get familiar with our repertoire and decided to take on some leadership positions in marching band because of having been in Bolt Band. And some folks who came to check us out at basketball games and said, oh, this is really a great thing, and I want to be a part of this when we start up in the fall. And so I think it was a really smart move on our part to get started during basketball season, because that gave us a lot of momentum then going into the fall, both with students and developing that sense of identity on campus.
And exposure.
Absolutely.
To students who stumbled upon you. What's interesting is that there were students here looking for a place to be.
Right.
And so you provided that with the band. So, okay, so now you've got some students there. Now we've got to get them prepared for performing. You mentioned the Bolt Band. How did you get them ready? And then let's talk about how you got students ready, or getting them ready for Titan Thunder.
Well, we advertised on whatever outlets that we had that we were looking for some student leadership for marching band all the way back in February. To start going through the process of identifying our drum major, to start identifying student leaders, with the plan of opening up marching band applications in March. And so to do so, I wanted to make sure that we had some student leadership identified who went, as people started applying to be in the marching band, I could already say, oh, you're looking to be in the trumpet section. Well, here are the students who are already listed as, or identified as, trumpet section leaders, let's say, for this coming year. And most of those students were folks who were not only involved in music studies here at the university, but also who wanted to get involved in Bolt Band. And so they felt like they had already sort of taken some sort of ownership of this process and saw themselves as some of the pioneers of this program. And so we tried to make sure that our student leaders were in touch with prospective students over the past few months. We held Zoom sessions with prospective members every other Thursday for almost 6 months to make sure that anybody who had questions about the band had an opportunity to get those answers from real people over the course of that time. Again, to make sure they felt like this is a real thing. There are actually students involved. I'm not the only person curious about this. We already have this structure in place. And then our initial preseason camp for marching band started on the 19th of August, and we had 2 really hard and full weeks of prep to get ready for our first game, which was Saturday, September 3rd. I hope to never have to do that long and that intensive a band camp again, but knowing how much we had to try to accomplish and put together with folks, it was really obvious we needed to take that amount of time so that we wouldn't be feeling like we were stuck at the last minute throwing things together. And with the students' work ethic, with the amount of preparation that our student leaders had done, and with just the initiative of all the students that joined here, all of them knew this was year one, that it was year one and they were coming in to do this work. And so there wasn't a matter of having to convince people to do it. They showed up on day one like, I am ready to make this happen. And so by the time we got to Tuesday night or Wednesday of that second week, coming up on the game day that weekend, it was obvious to me and to all the staff that we were absolutely going to make it. People asked me if at the end of our first football game, did you finally have a sense of relief after all of this? Because there were many sleepless nights and 16-hour days and just, me personally for thousands of hours of work over 14 months. How was it after your first game? And I said, it wasn't the game. It was like 4 or 5 days before the game when I said, we're going to make it without any more stress. There's enough time to practice what we've learned. The students are getting this quick enough that we can get enough repetitions in. We can get people really comfortable and confident in what they're doing and not feel like they're unsure of what they're going to do when they get into that game day atmosphere. And so I'm really pleased with both our staff and the students that were here. They worked so hard and they deserve to celebrate afterwards. We really took some time to focus on our success there because it was a great thing.
Is there a next step? Is the band on the field now or still in the stands? I mean, have you developed some sort of presentation
Sure.
formations and that kind of thing? Has that already taken place or is that the next step?
That was something we wanted to have ready on game one. People were coming out, both our university folks as well as parents, for example, and local folks who wanted to come check out this band that they've been reading about or hearing about for a while. So we had 2 different field shows at our first game, a really traditional pregame show that featured school tunes, made a big UWO on the field and spelled out Titans and things that really identify with that sort of marching band nostalgia, things that, people who were in the band long ago could look at this and say, well, this wasn't exactly what we did, but I can feel this. Mm-hmm. And but we also then had a halftime show. The students thought it'd be great to do a show that used all music with thunder in the title. So we had AC/DC Thunderstruck, Imagine Dragons, Thunder, and then Garth Brooks, The Thunder Rolls. And they thought that'd be a great way to get us on the field and going. But unlike unlike some college bands, but unlike most high school bands, we're going to do a completely different halftime show for our next performance on October 1. And so we've shelved the Thunder show and are now moving on to this another theme that the students put together, throwback to 2010. I laugh at that every time. 2010 doesn't feel that long ago to me, but they came up with a lot of great ideas for music, and we'll have a brand new halftime show to use for that, and as well as a high school competition to try to get some more recruits the day after that, and stick with that traditional pregame show that we'll be able to use then over the years.
Wow. Great work. I mean, to go from zero to where you're just talking about, that sounds like a lot of work, and congratulations to you and everyone who's been involved.
Thank you. It's been really rewarding, and people ask me, what's your favorite part of all this? And it's really looking at our students and how much pride they've developed in this whole organization, even though they've only been here for really like 3 weeks doing it. I let them know that for all of our long band camp days, we had so many hours of rehearsal. We had the equivalent of a week's worth of rehearsal every day that we were together. So it really feels like we've been together for months now trying to put this whole thing together. I don't think any of them feel like they've only been here for a couple weeks. And that's been great to develop a community and a culture there, but it's also been great for us to really feel prepared.
Congratulations to you again, and thanks for coming by and talking to us today on UWO Now. It's been great to meet you. It's been great to hear the story and how you got here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
You've been listening to and watching UWO Now. I'm Wendell Race. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, we're here every other week on 90.3 WRST FM. Thanks for checking us out here. Remember to check for us regularly for the UWO podcast by simply clicking on the RSS feed, and that'll help you stay current with the latest episodes of UWO Now. I'm Wendell Ray. Thanks so much for listening.